I am live. You're alive. Background music slow.
Are we alive?
We're live. I don't know if you're alive. Zombie Alex, Zombie Alex. All right, sound should be good. We'll give it a few for the thing to catch up, but yeah,
Yep.
we're good. We're going. Hello everyone. I guess that's the
Hello.
best way to start. We have JC with us. We did not expect to have JC with us, but we're always happy to have JC with us.
Yay.
So this just means that moving forward, at random time, JC will be in our live streams, and he may randomly disappear at times. But if he does that,
Yeah.
just shrug it off and keep going, because that's the choice about live stream. Hey everyone, we got Jeffrey in the chat. We got Steven. Steven's always there. I love it. He's so supportive. Flesh and Bones showing up on YouTube. So it's great. Thank you everyone for joining. I was just saying before we started this, it's like Alex and I no longer have to worry. Will there be someone to watch? There's always people who join us. So I think that's awesome. It's so good to be at this point. Before we jump into this, I want to give a shout out to our Patreon supporters, to our retail partners, to content creators, to everyone who supports and helps build this community. Thank you. It's been a crazy month, and as we gear towards the launch of second edition, I'm just, hoping everything goes smoothly. But as we all know, things don't always go smoothly. So if we have any complications, hiccups, hope you don't yell at us. Keep being our friends. All right, so what are we talking about today? We're talking about deck building, creating your first timeline. I think this came out as a chat on Discord, right? Like,
Yes.
that was
Yes.
the reason
There
why
was
we wanted to do this?
questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. People were asking like, where's the best sort of start? Is there articles, videos? And I grabbed one of our older videos talking about it, but I don't remember what's in it. I didn't rewatch it. I
Yeah.
don't rewatch what we've streamed.
I mean, should I take some time like taking this video and like editing it down so it's a comprehensive video, or it's like should we just give them the banter?
I don't know. Who knows? But at least this is a more modern day video with
Yes.
modern thoughts.
Yeah.
That's where we're gonna start with. You know what?
Last time we did this was at the beginning, near the beginning of the pandemic, when we just started doing the exploring the library. So like, this is episode 38. So we're talking about nearly 40 weeks ago, because I think we skipped a few exploring the libraries.
Mm-hmm.
So
Sure.
almost a year ago was when we did this. We did this talk before. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting.
All right, everybody, give a vote. We'll go down the line. I'll start with this, Sid. What is one champion you think a new player should start with? Just give us
Start
one.
with.
Yes, just one. And
I love Raha as a starting champion. Do you want me to dig into why, or just like
yeah, give us a quick why.
All right. I think she's simplistic, gives you a lot of feel for the tactical elements of the game without overburdening you with too much complexity, and you get to understand energy reduction right off the bat. So that's why all the starter kits I design have always had Raha as one of the focuses.
Fair enough. JC, I'm gonna make a prediction. Your champion is Malik, and why?
How do you know it was a Malik? What made you decide that? Actually, you're correct. Malik for me is the same thing. You learn energy reduction right off the get-go, and Malik teaches a new player very quickly how to get the most out of the least amount of aura.
So I will say this about Malik that I really like in the demoing purposes, because when I'm talking about the speeds of the card, I can instantly be like, here's action speed, here's swift speed. Like, I can point them both out on the champion. Raha, you can't do that. But Raha has the benefit that in her second move, I can point out energy and talk about energy reduction straight off of there. So, pros and cons.
All right, I'm gonna pick it way different from Malik. My choice is Idris, because I think a new player getting into this, she has just such raw power built into herself that they will enjoy themselves even if they build a bad deck. That it sort of balances out.
Now, my question to you is, when you're building a first deck or just teaching someone how to play, what is your expectations on their base level of knowledge for gaming, or like in Genesis? What do you expect them to come in knowing already?
So expectation for gaming or for Genesis?
Let's go with expectations when they're sitting down to learn how to play. What do you assume they know the baseline of?
I assume they know nothing.
Okay.
I will ask them. I will be like, "What games have you played?" And like, there's a few like I've said for a while. The newest one, specifically for Genesis, which is a weird one that I asked when talking to a new player. I ask, "Are you stubborn?" And this is a really weird one that most people aren't used to. But this is a very important one now for me. Having run a demo with a stubborn person. So, and why this is important is because when dealing with a stubborn person, I go in Genesis, the defender can respond, and if it's a summon versus summon, the second one is going to kill your summon. A stubborn person will double move, attack your summon, and you go, I will attack back and kill your summon. And then you go, do you want to take that move back? And a stubborn person will go, no, I made that move. It's like, oh, okay, cool. I see this game. You're not going to enjoy this game anymore.
Yeah.
From that exact point, they will now no longer. But if you ask them, are they stubborn? And I go into the reason why, if you're stubborn, why I ask that question, they go, oh, well, this game, sometimes I find stubborn people lose interest in the game when they make a bad move. Now, if later on they go and make a bad move and I suggest, are you sure you want to make that move? They'll be more open to switching it up.
All right. It's funny because, like, you know, I've been called stubborn quite a few times in my life. So it's interesting that this game, it's for people who can identify that they're stubborn. That's the point you're really getting at.
Yeah,
I think, and it also nails on another point, which I really love, is that Genesis isn't for everyone, and you have to be aware. Anyways, this is a really different topic than what we have intended, but it was good. I've never heard that from you, so I think that's cool, especially for people who are watching and looking to teach their peers on how to play. That's a good point, and it's something to bring up for sure. All right, so how are we gonna start this?
Well, let's talk about deck building and not the game itself. That'll help us a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
So how about if I sit down with a new player and they're trying to deck build? That's still there. If a new player sits down, they already have Genesis cards for whatever reason, whether they bought a box, bought one of the beta starter kits, whatever they got. Sort your cards. Sort your affiliated cards. Step one. Then you can look and see which ones you have the most of, or the cards you want to play. If you see you have this really cool angel card, we know what kind of deck you're going to build. It's going to be from one of these 3 champions. Right? Yeah. We know how that works. It's like, if that's the route you go, and sometimes that's the route people go. So the question is, do they take a interest in a particular card, or do they take a particular interest in a champion? Sometimes it's neither even. Sometimes they have no clue. And that's another very important thing. And they'll ask you where to go.
Yeah.
And sometimes they'll just be like, I really love this card. This card looks so cool. And you'll be like, well, you know, you can do it. I won't suggest against it. It's just the hardest champion to play. Yeah. And usually that's Rain.
Now, I've been seeing a lot of people also try Core for the first time. It's just something about the dark, goth, like, scary-looking creatures that do draw a lot of players in. But I've seen a lot of people wanting to start with Kendra, Rain, or Core, and it's like, yeah, same thing. It's always a challenge. It's like, keep in mind, these are really hard to master champions. And even some of the best of us struggle with playing with those champions. One wrong move, and you could lose the entire game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another avenue I like to go down when asking the players is just straight up saying, what would you like to focus more on? Do you want to be focused more on a spellcaster, a summoner, or be a fighter? And sometimes they have opinions, sometimes they won't. But if they do, that helps you narrow it down once more. If we look at the groups of champions here, most of them work out well. Like, you can go down here, you got your summoner and Long, your fighter and Fang, Erica can be a spellcaster. You go up here, you have Kendra that can be a spellcaster. And then we get a bit muddy over here, because Rain, yes, definitely a fighter. I I find core is just sort of the in between both of them.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. You don't. Oh, there we go. We lost the tabletop simulator. Refreshing it up.
JC, you've been a little quiet here. What are your thoughts when getting into it, looking at champions or looking at cards? How would you recommend players start it?
So I'd be looking at something similar to having those starter decks and that. So we're looking at a Raha, a Malik, or someone who's very similar to their styles to start, just to get people into the flow of the game. When it comes to deck construction, I like how I was taught. If let's say I pick Raha, I like a 7 cheat card. I'm going to tell them, well, you're going to have to balance it out with a 3 cheat card now. And same with your 6 to your 4. If you want that 8 cheat card, then you're going to have to look at 4 cards together. That should be equaling around 20 at that point. So trying to build cards in groups to build our 50 card deck within the affiliation we are in.
Yeah. I like the way you have the champions displayed here, because this is the image that I had when I started designing Genesis, was kind of that old callback to Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, all those fighting games where you have just this slew of characters, and then if you're brand new to it, you just pick one, the one that looks coolest to you, and then just go for it and see what happens. And if it works, that's great. If it doesn't, try someone new and just pick the different characters. That's always been kind of my feeling. And as the roster grows and we go into that, much larger landscape of a whole bunch of champions, that's personally how I would tell players to start. It's just, have all your champions laid out, and then just pick the one that looks coolest to you. Make a 50 card deck, no matter how good it is, and just start playing with it. Yeah. Just see if you actually like the style of champion, and if there's moments that you enjoy, double down on those moments. Things you didn't like about the deck, pull those out and try to find other avenues to express yourself.
Yeah, I fully agree. Definitely one of the things, I try not to straight up tell somebody a card is bad unless it's Tacky Psyche, but my first go is try the deck out. If you find a card is dead at any time within a match, note that for when your match is done, cut it. Yes. And fix it. Fix your deck.
I don't find that in other games, you have this, let's imagine an XY graph, and you have this cone of usability, and there's a lot of abilities or functions or cards that fall outside of the cone, so they're just completely useless in any situation. But like you were saying, I think a lot of Genesis cards, it comes with practice, it comes with time. There's no card that's strictly bad in all situations, and you will find a use for it in your deck at some point, except for Taki Saki. But no, I like that approach. I think I would definitely encourage more people to just try every card that they have at least once and see where it takes them. So going from here, I guess, unless you have a different approach, I think what I would like to see a division on is, from your opinion, what do you see as easy to use champions, ones that are more mid-level, and one that are more experience level champions?
All right, we're just gonna pull out the harder champions. I think that's definitely the hardest three. I think. I'm trying to think, is there any from you guys? Do you think that should be on the harder scale?
Core is definitely on the forgiving side.
Yeah, he's in the middle for me.
I've never actually probably built a long deck. I've always found him a challenge for some reason or another.
I will agree.
Yeah.
I will give JC the agree. It definitely, I think it's being pushed to the middle for me.
Yeah.
Because me and you said we build.
I think we're the only ones who play long.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll explain why he's better. Then he's not as difficult as he looks.
But he requires not a lot of practice. You just need that moment where it clicks, and then all of a sudden, you're like, oh, this is how you're supposed to be playing him this entire time, and everything just kind of snowballs from there. But until you have that moment, it's just, for some reason, yeah, I didn't see him working. Fong is actually another champion who's kind of like that to me. On paper, she seems like, oh, she'd be super easy to use. I think I'd still keep her in the middle slot because she is very forgiving of a champion.
It's funny here because if you almost looks like spellcasters, fighters, and summoners. It almost looks like that.
Except for Kendra, I think is the biggest
this
exception.
little group right here.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's just I think the fact that it's weird that Kendra though won out. It's just like the more aura you have, the more forgiving your deck can be.
The one that I would actually push towards the right on the easy side is Raha. It's really easy to just make a deck that works for Raha. And it doesn't help that one of the three of some of the top 10 best cards in the game just instantly synergize with her. Bolt Shot, Chrono Walker, and Wind Slash. Like, those cards just work so well with her that you don't need to think too much when designing a deck for her. Yeah. All right. So, now, JC, how do you feel about the fact that Malik's in the middle?
I would have to agree Malik's probably middle. That aura is tough to deal with. Like, 80 aura, a new player is going to have a lot of difficulties trying to figure out how to use 80 aura and how to pace Malik. Malik is a champion. If you don't know how to pace your plays, Malik will fall apart very quickly.
My perspective is that, so neither of you two played back in Alpha. The first Genesis tournament ever, which was only just 6 people playing, the winner was a Malik deck. Outside of that one win, Malik has not seen another tournament win for a very long time. And it isn't until more recently, and I think it was shortly before the championship, but definitely a lot more recently, did we start seeing people really start playing with Malik. And giving him another chance. And it was really just the synergy with Baruch, and it works so well.
Don't forget Anja Tiger is absolutely a save in a Malik deck.
All right, so you talked a bit about why those 3 champions are so Idris, Nubia, and Erica, why they're very forgiving, why they're good, like starter champions, easy to master. And you mentioned on aura. It can't be just aura, because Kendra has 150 aura as well. And she's on the exact opposite.
It's the weird one out. It's the weird one out. It's that Kendra advises the mage to go in.
Yeah.
It's built on her. She's like, go in there and Nirim them. And that's the only reason why.
Yeah.
And a new player will be like, an opponent discarding 2 cards at random, losing 2 life. That's amazing, right?
Until they get in too close and end up just getting destroyed by a couple of attacks.
Yeah, exactly.
I would actually argue that the pinnacle, like the thing that's determining all 3 of these categories, is the champion's secondary move. And how complex it is to master that secondary move. Because Idris, Nubia, Erica, Raha, those are very simplistic secondary moves. It's very understanding how they just work. Malik's, even his heavy attack, that does confuse players. When should I use that? How often should I be using that? Flight and dash, again, you assume those are just super easy to use, but there are times to hold back. There are certain cards that don't synergize. Like, we don't see the condensed fog decks much. Core Fong, like it all, I really think hinders on the secondary move. Do you disagree anywhere?
I agree. I think there's a little bit different about Kun, as if Kun's, for those people who are new, Kun in the beginning had a swift attack. If he still had a swift attack, he would be on the right. Yeah. Because of his action attack, it puts him in.
So I think it's a lot less to do with the stats and a lot more to do with how well do they synergize with, let's not just say a secondary ability, let's just say their abilities.
Are you saying Fang's secondary ability Is
Well,
it good enough?
look at Fong's secondary ability.
Yeah.
How often do you actually see that, and how valuable is it?
Yeah, not very often. It's not that
There's
used.
one place in the entire game where it is one of the best moves I've ever seen, but it's so rare. And that's when your opponent tsunamis you for the kill, and you target yourself with Fire Shield so you can decoy Rabbit out of it.
That is fair. That is
But
very,
knowing
very fair.
how and when and where to use Fong's Fire Shield it takes some practice. It's not intuitive.
That's true. I would agree. But otherwise, I think the energy reduction on Fong allows it more forgiving.
Yes.
That's where it balances out.
Yeah. If Fong had one energy reduction or no energy reduction, I would see her definitely on the with Long.
Yeah.
But the fact that she has the 2 energy reduction and makes things like just Rain of Arrows. She's the only champion who can comfortably play Rain of Arrows.
Yeah.
I don't know why we don't see more of that, but that's a whole other conversation.
So I wanted to talk about Long because JC said he's had difficulty building this champion, which is weird. And the reason why I think it's here in this left corner versus we looking at the right, there's a second category I just realized. And it's, other than Kendra breaks this rule again, is how many options you can really build with these champions. So if you look over here on the right, you can see all these people doing anything they want. Anything in Bellum, they're playing bolt shots, they're playing the best techniques, they're playing the best spells. Same with up here. These are the best summons, best spells. Over here, we were talking about is the best stuff.
Yeah.
But then when you get over here, and we look at specifically looking at the summoners, you don't have the aura to be playing spells and playing summons. Yep. You can play techniques, but you don't have any energy reduction.
Yep.
It's just not sticking to the plan of a summon, which is your built in with your character to give you an advantage, is awkward.
Yeah.
So I think when building a deck for these types of champions, excluding Kendra, I'm gonna keep saying that because she's just crazy.
Yep.
That's about it. It's hard for people to build decks for that specific reason. And my best advice to make a Long deck and just build it as a summoner. Just throw any summons down.
Yep.
I have played Long decks where I got 0 of my summons except for a Fear Cub. Just keep curing the Fear Cub.
Yep.
It's okay. When it's a 2 of 9, it's just as difficult for your opponent to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah. It is very true. I remember the first time my brother, way back Alpha, and he comes up to me. It was just after Long released. So this was when the new 4 champions, Fong, Long, Kendra, Rain, released. And he was like, on paper, Long has the best stats. He has a 2 attack, Swift. He has 100 aura, which is fairly reasonable. 28 health, which is crazy. Like, you can run him in as a fighter. You can play him as a caster. You can play him as a summoner. He has the tool sets to do anything. But the moment you try playing him as anything besides a summoner, it really starts falling apart.
Yeah.
The other reason why I think people choke up when playing with Long is they are too hesitant to use Cure. Because you're paying a full 4 cards. It feels like a lot. But remember, Genesis isn't a game about potential. It's about actual. It's about what is the current game state and optimizing off of that. It's not hoping to draw into the best card. So with Long, if all you have is a Fire Cup, if all you have is a, Giant Scorpion or any summon at all, start investing into it. Invest into it because it's gonna win you the game. When you get a second summon out, then you could choose about diversifying and splitting up who you're gonna cure. But start curing things. It's so important.
It's funny you say about this, about how great his stats are. So this is how I recently told a player about how Long actually wins the game. Is he plays all these summons in front of him.
Does he play the long game? Sorry.
And while your opponent is spending all the resources and energy to deal with all his summons, you're going to be out of aura. They're going to be out of aura. but look at your stats compared to anybody else.
Yeah.
You've been in the back line with 28 health.
Yeah.
This whole time. They're not going to get through you.
Yeah. I love it when early to mid game, my opponent's shifts, they're like, you're carrying your summons too much. I can't get through that wall. I'm just going to kill you. I'm like, perfect. Because my summons are way more valuable, and it's going to take you forever to kill me because I have so much health. So I love that. And whenever I see someone like heavy attack me with Malik's attack, I'm like, all right, cool. Let's do this. I don't care. Yeah. No, I think more people should look into playing with him because he has one of the more unique play styles out of all the champions. I feel I always find long decks being like, wow, like, yeah, it does a thing, it does it really well, and just reinforces it. That's great.
So as a opposite note, I would, if there was a fourth tier, I'd push Odara slightly to the left, because with all the bonuses we talked about, Odara doesn't get that support, unfortunately. Once the summons are cleared, Odara just has a tiny whip, and it's not enough for her.
Now, on the flip side, you got to remember as well with Odara, her second ability, 10 targeted opponents summon, and they can't prevent that damage.
Yeah,
that's true.
And that's something that's not kept in mind a lot when, taking on an opponent.
Yeah. It's more so, I mean, the strategy of Odara is very linear like Long. You have to play her as a summoner. But if your main game plan dies, like your summons, which you yourself are going to weaken if you do the ability, she doesn't have the persistency that Long has to win the late game.
While we're here, anyone who's watching in the chat, if there's a champion you want us to dig down on because it's one that you've been thinking about, you've been trying to build around, or you just want more details, and just let us know so we can talk about that. Now, my question is, for Odara, what do you think's missing? Because I feel like Odara and Kendra are missing some key piece of their functionality. Like, maybe Odara needs that big summon, and maybe she needs, like, most of the time when I build a reasonable Odara deck, it just functions better with Idris. What is it that Odara needs?
Like, you might be right. It might need a very specific type of summon that works with her. Because I agree with you. And that's literally how every single Odara deck has gone for me, is you literally just port over to Idris, and it just feels way better.
Yeah. Because, like, Idris has a reasonable win con built in. That's...
Yeah. Like the one deck Odara has is the specifically, from what I've seen, Will's played many tried decks with Odara. From what I've seen is, like, the only thing it really is the Baruch combo, where you drop a Baruch, it hits for 4, you whip for 4, you start the turn, you hit for 4 with a Baruch, or well, technically, if you have the play, so at the end of the turn, you have a Baruch swings for 4, you spur it, hits for 4 again, your opponent takes 8. If you're first, you go to Odara, you go to spur again, Baruch attacks for 4, and the spur goes off and you hit again. That's the only combo main play I've seen with Odara successfully work. 16 off of 1 Baruch. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's the best thing I've seen with Odara, because it's like any other sort of summon, you spur it, you can get some good damage out of it, but it just becomes flimsy at that point. And because if it doesn't have Blitz, you're not getting that immediate value out of it right away. But I think we should get away from Odara. Let's get back to the main focus at hand. Sorry.
I do think that in this conversation about, like, weaving your first timeline, building a deck, having a good understanding of digging into the champions is very important, because how much more can we talk about when it comes to deck building outside of talking about the champions? But yeah, we can jump to a different champion.
For sure. Did we get anybody asking for a specific champion to focus on?
Not yet.
Not yet? No worries.
Hoping that, Jeffrey, Flesh and Bones, someone, can you hear me?
It's quite all right.
Is there a champion you two want to jump to? Because I have one.
Oh, you give us yours if you have
All right.
one.
So Rain, Rain's really interesting for me because she had a lot of focus on her, and her play with the OTK deck wasn't that complex. Is the point here that now her OTK deck is not as valuable as it once was, and that's why she's shifting over? Because I feel like if you just focus on the OTK deck and that playstyle, she is kind of a mid-range champion, and she's not.
Yeah, I think Rain just lost her way, and nobody's really built with her properly or tried to build a different way since the OTK deck.
I see.
And I really think that's really where it is. We need somebody new to come in to try to pilot and make a new mid-range deck.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I think
Yeah.
Rain's sitting at.
So between her, so Malik is always my baseline now. Switching from Malik over to Rain, we lose Thymos over to Axon. Could we play Rain as more of a mid-range style champion? Using that 90 aura just to get what we need out of our summons, and then turning around and maybe using her ability to take a position that she needs to strike. Like, her health's not great, but she still swings for 3, which will take out your average summon anyways.
Yeah.
Are we playing her too fast and she needs to kind of watch the board and strike where she needs to?
It's definitely possible, because back in the day, I know Assad used to play more of the Rain Drain deck.
Yeah.
Which was definitely there.
I was really into running Rain with Vampire Kiss, Chrono Walkers. You got side swipes and smoke bombs. Just a lot more of it, and then using Living Shadows not as a way to get into combat, but a way to get out.
Mm-hmm.
Because the combo I love the most, which I feel it's way more stable than the OTK, is you're being surrounded. You need a way out. Play Living Shadows. In response to Living Shadows, play Dark Attack 3. And then that way you hit someone for 3 and you're out of there and they can't come after you easily.
Mm-hmm.
I think Rain on the long play. Now we have Epiphany, which if you're not running it in Access, you run 2 or 3 of them to just refill your hand. That can help a lot. And I would also be looking into Otens to give her a lot more evasion. Because if she can just come in and constantly stab for the 3, that does add up over a long enough time frame. Now,
Sure.
her biggest weakness is the Angels.
Yeah.
There's nothing inherently in Axon Chaos that allows her to just deal with Angels.
Yeah, I agree. Your best bet is Demon's Rage. Plus, you have to buff it somehow. That's the problem.
Icky.
Yeah, it's very icky.
Yeah.
But you can always teleport to the right spot to hopefully hit the just summoned angel and Demon's Rage, both the angel and the champion. That's the only advantage you got there.
Yeah.
But you're right, it's just icky.
Yeah.
I think the real issue where Rain has fallen out with non the OTK at this point is just the decks have gotten very aggressive, and Rain has the health of the other casters, but the damage is just, it's there. The decks, the Idris Blitz, the Nubia spellcasters, even the Angels, they can get through that 18 health so quickly.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing. If you were able to get a drain off, then you should be fine. Once you start gaining that health.
I think that's a big piece of the puzzle that I definitely missed from beta alpha days, was just Vampire Kiss. No one's running that, and it's such a powerful tool to use against summoned. Your opponent drops a Chrono Walker, you Vampire Kiss it for 3, and then attack it for the remaining 3, and then all of a sudden you're up a fair amount of health. It's just, I don't see many people run Vampire Kiss as much anymore.
Yeah, very true.
I think I'm gonna invest a little bit of time in the next little while looking into building a Rain deck. It's been a while.
I've made a new deck each week, so I'll make a Rain deck this week. In paper for the Sunday events. I've run a different one
nice.
every week.
There's a shameless plug. Dragon World Sunday tournament's going on.
That's fair.
Okay, so we just end off until, I mean, not end off, but like, continue on and talk about the last one on the list there of difficult champions to play?
Kendra?
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember what was my last video I made of the various champions. Was it Kendra? I think so.
Yes,
I don't know if you watched. Did you watch that one?
Yep. Yep.
Where I talked about Kendra's mad and she'll make you mad too.
Yep.
So weirdly enough, I think Kendra's best spot, and I think this is why she's off when people try to build with her, I think is as a summoner. I've been recently playing her as a summoner, and I think that's the best where she sits. Using like what's the card you love? Not Blink Shards.
Temporal Relocation?
Temporal Relocation, rather than Malicious Persuasions as your summon evasion. Because at the start of the game, you immediately go to the right. Because it's not going to matter. You're going to summon a big summon, whether it just be a Behemoth, a Pie in One Day, whatever you choose. Because you can do any of them. I was running Chasmodons, I was running Hegemons, and that balances out the slowness of the Celestial Hegemon. It's just move to the right, place it. Whatever your opponent does, you go, all right, Celestial Hegemon, you're in position, go at it.
Yeah.
You summon a Pie one day, send it over, go at it. You're getting in that 4 damage at a minimum. Your opponent's now dealing with it.
Yeah.
And you continue.
I like it.
I don't think you can really play her as a fighter, but go at it. I do believe in the Drain deck for Kendra, where you can do Vampire Kisses and Malfeasance. I do like that.
Ooh.
But I think it's specifically the teleport over and try to do spellcastery things, just those. I don't think it never seems to go well unless you land that Malfeasance. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah. Now, since you're running a slower deck, I assume... Okay, it's definitely an interesting playstyle. I like the idea because Chaos has some of the bulkiest and like scariest summons to hit the arena. You mentioned a few there, but also Death's Companion is a great example, and I've seen you run that where you drop a Death's Companion and temporal relocate it over. That's very annoying. And it is a little bit easier to react to things compared to using Stone Protector.
Yeah, I also have Stone Protectors in the deck, because that's the one thing I will say is most people use the teleport to get Kendra into position to then try to do the Neurum.
Yeah.
Specifically, this was actually the deck I ran this week in the event. But the matches where I got Stone Protectors on a Kendra, you just take your time, Stone Protector. Follow turn, Stone Protector onto Kendra. Third turn, now you can go over and Neurum them, because you're going to wait, because you're playing a summon deck, you're going to have turn economy. Once your opponent is gone, now teleport over and Neurum them.
Interesting.
If they evade or anything like that, that's fine. As soon as the next round starts, you have a Stone Protector to get out. And it'd literally be, if you don't have the positioning, get out. Go to across the board.
Yeah. So it's interesting because both the Sahas champions you have here, that we basically kind of broke it down to don't focus too much on their secondary ability, Living Shadows and Neurum. Focus more on their key selling feature, the 3 attack or the 150 aura. With the other two, Odara and Long, it was like double down on their secondary ability. So it's interesting. I think we'll see a lot more opportunities for the champions as the card pool grows, as the game grows. But yeah, I really like that concept for Kendra, and it leverages a lot of tools that other champions aren't optimizing with.
Yeah.
So very interesting, very unique. And the idea with the Neurum just being like, it's my plan B if other things don't work out. And same with Living Shadows. It's, hey, you're in a bad situation, you need to get out there, you don't have a teleport or anything else in hand, well, Living Shadows out. Cool. Alright, should we move over to the middle column?
I'm trying to wonder if, just because we're running out, we don't have that much time. Should we move to the next step? What is the next step you go from after choosing your champions? Because we can deep dive into all of them, and we can do a quick quick statement on these as quick as possible. JC, tell them about Malik. Go.
How to build them?
Yeah.
Conservative. Don't use much aura. Make every inch of your aura pay you as much as you can in dividends. If a summon comes out and it dies, you're screwed. That's the way to put it. You're screwed if you lose a summon. So make sure that summon lives as long as possible, does as much damage as possible, and worst case scenario, puppet control does work.
All right, we got a special guest joining us. Chris has joined the chat.
Yes.
All right, Chris.
Somebody
we're here.
write that down.
What champion do you start with when you're going to build a deck, Chris?
Rain. Done. That's it. Rain.
Bear in mind, Chris has only been able to beat Lionel, so I mean, the bar is not.
I've only
very
played
high
against Lionel, so I'm good to go. Oh man, how are you guys doing?
We're doing well. We're going over the
well.
champions.
Yeah. We're going over the last few champions, and then we're going to jump into the next phase, which is what do you do next once you figure out which champion you want to play with?
You win. That's the obvious answer. You win.
All right, I'm going to push us along, even though we have Chris
yes.
here. Unfortunately, going on to Kun, I'm going to do a quick thing about Kun versus Raha here. I think Raha wants to play as many Swifts as possible. Kun has the power to play action speed abilities very powerfully, and I highly suggest focusing on that. Not many champions can do it that as well as Kun can, because he essentially gets to double move and play those action speed abilities.
Yeah.
That's going to be all I go into there. Moving on to core.
For core, my thing I would say is don't build a deck where you're playing one health summons just to Mobius them. If you need to do it, but don't build your deck around that.
That's fair. That's fair. If you do it, you do it. But yeah, I guess going in, you're like, my deck, all one health summons so I can Mobius them. And then what do? You just perpetually create one once to eat them, and you don't win a game.
Yep.
That's the answer. Fong. Fong, I think, is actually pretty easy to build for, weirdly enough, for new players. I think she's a surprisingly easy to build, because you just look at usually that 2 energy. Where it's complicated is building the best deck for Fong. It's probably the more actual complication about that. You've probably, at this point, you've built the Fong deck, you've probably put too many energy cards in your deck. And that's the honest truth. That's probably where you're at. That's your answer. Go look back at, put some more auras in. That's my best advice. You guys got any?
Fong would be similar to Malik in that it's using her aura as best as possible to get summons out there. Yeah. You can build the one-woman army, but sometimes you need a little help from your friends. That's going to have it.
Yeah. Look into some of those 70s. Rage Gorilla, Baruch, Guardian of Balance. Those with the Fire Shield can definitely be a big nuisance for your opponent.
All right, we've picked our champion, guys.
Okay.
Which is JC. Pick a champion that isn't Malik.
Erica.
Is Erica? Where do we go from here? First step is easy. Just pull up your Bellum and your Thymos cards.
Yeah.
That's step 1. If you're not building a top tier deck, which you shouldn't be, it shouldn't be your goal right away, I think. Should be building the best that you can, learning the game type thing. It's pulling out your Thymos and your Bellum cards and going through it.
Yeah. Going
through it to see what you have and what works best with Erica, or what works best with the cards you have. That's my next step. I don't know if you guys have a different step.
So for me, it comes down to how long have you been playing Genesis. If you're brand new to the game, I would recommend adding some variety, because there's a lot of hidden gems in the game that until you try them out. A good example is Cattail Tiger. That one, a lot of people doubt the value of right away. Just try your cards, see which ones you enjoy playing with, because if you just run the meta decks, those meta decks are geared towards those meta players who enjoy playing those decks. Mm-hmm. You're not necessarily going to do well with them just because you have those cards.
Yeah, that's true. Very true.
Yeah.
And I agree, because when we go deep diving into decks and what you can build and what you can build, we can go along lines like, oh, you should build a summoner, you should build a fighter, you could build a caster. And usually when you get to these champions over here, we talked about how you can build anything with that. if you're a new player to this, I wouldn't focus that at all. Just build a deck.
Yeah.
Build a deck. That's the next step. Don't focus on anything. Don't try to strategize anything. You might not have enough cards to build a caster Erica deck. You might have enough cards to build a summoner Erica deck, or maybe even a fighter Erica deck. I don't know.
Yeah.
Build a deck. That's your first step. I wouldn't focus on the subtypes or the sub games, the sub thoughts of whatever we consider deck building within Genesis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
CJ in the chat says, "Hey, what's up, everyone? Hope everyone is doing good. This is awesome." Now, the thing I want to point out is CJ say what? And it's like, say what? I just thought that was
I don't have enough energy to do that.
I thought that was great. Yeah. So one thing I see. I don't know. So one thing I see, especially when it comes to some particular champions, are like people see Erica, assume that she's going to be a great summoner because she pulls out a Baihu on her ability. She seems like she doesn't have a high attack stat, doesn't have that energy resistance, and those assumptions that you come in with the champions, I think that also plays a folly for a lot of new players. They assume that if I'm playing Raha, I have to play her as an archer. Or if I'm playing Erica, I have to play her as a summoner. And what you said earlier is just build the decks. I've seen people run into combat. I won a lot of games playing Idris as a fighter. I've done that quite a few times. So don't come in with those assumptions, expectations when it comes to it. Champions are just champions. They're good at everything. You just need to learn the right timing for most moves. Hey, CJ enjoyed my thing. All right. So just say.
CJ seems to be a Rain fan too.
I was just going to message him saying, you just missed the whole rain conversation.
Aww.
All
right.
Okay, so you've built your first deck. What do you do? Well, obviously, I don't know why I'm asking these hypothetical questions. You've built your first deck, play it. I know some people just do this, playing it online or play it themselves. They build two decks and play themselves. You can do that. It's perfectly fine. Just to get used to the cards. Even better if you have a friend and you're both just building decks. I bet you'll have the best time having Genesis. The best time I've ever had Genesis is always in the beginning. While I do enjoy the top tier play, it's not necessarily my favorite. I think when the decks are very clunky and unique things happen, that's the best Genesis. But it can be said about any card game. It's very true. Like if you look at other card games like Magic the Gathering, the tabletop gaming is the purest fun I had when I was young. You can play the top tier thing, but it's not necessarily the most fun.
Yeah. I agree. I love casual. I love multiplayer. I know not everyone's a big fan of multiplayer, but one of my favorite.
Multiplayer is the best.
Yeah, like Chris knows this. Chris and I built Genesis as like a 2v2 game. That's how it was. Multiplayer is a lot of fun. One of my favorite gaming experiences. A lot of them have been in multiplayer settings, like the 6-player free for all at Black Knight. That was a lot of fun.
Don't remind me.
Oh yeah, were you there for that?
I was there for one of them. I
yeah.
Coming up behind and thinking of taking an Angel with a Substrike, with a Chrono Walker hitting a board, followed by a shoulder throw and whiffing on that attack, and I was not happy.
Yeah. It's just they're great kind of casual moments. I love that. I mean, of course, the competitive is to each their own, right? But I think one of the biggest things for new players who are getting into this and just trying out their deck, realize that this is a game of iterations. Your first version of a deck isn't going to be the best. You have to practice with it over and over and
speak for yourself.
I
said speak for yourself. First version of my deck is best deck. Awesome.
You've only played against Lionel.
And I've only won, so I don't know what more you want from me.
We gotta get you playing against Alex.
Then Alex will lose.
Those are some big words coming out, Chris.
They're the only words I know.
So, Alex, we've gone through, we've built the deck. Have fun. If you're a casual player, where are you going next?
Okay, so let's move to the next step. And I think I was helping somebody just yesterday who was building a tabletop simulator deck, was just starting their tabletop simulator journey. And they just built a deck. They're like, this is my plan. It was an interesting plan because it's also interesting to see how new people think about the game. So this person was coming into the game being like, I built my deck to be anti-OTK. And it was weird. It was interesting because it's a new player, as far as I know, hasn't played yet. And I was like, why is that your goal? But in my mind, I didn't say that outright, but he asked me about how his deck was doing, and it was a whole lot of healing effects. So when I said, you will do very great against any deck that runs 0 summons. If it is a 0 summon deck and it's just a fighter deck, you're going to have tons of life. But as soon as a single summon comes down, you're not going to have a good day because they're going to have consistent damage. So you need to now balance your deck. And now it comes into the rock, paper, scissors of it all. If you are a fighter, you need to be prepared to deal with summons. If you're a caster, you need to be prepared to deal with fighters. And you now need to balance your deck so that you don't just lose to a specific archetype. While we have that rock, paper, scissors, you want to mitigate and balance your deck so you don't guarantee that loss.
Yeah. So it's been a while since I've sat down with new players who are just getting into the game and building their deck. But I do find that they overcompensate a lot. Kind of what you're saying, like them building a deck directly against OTK or something like that. Either they become too defensive, they're running a lot of Holy Walls, Guardian Imbalances, or, they're in love with Air Shields. Or they become too offensive and they're not running things like Chrono Walker. They're not running things like O10. Because if the card's not going to win them the game, they think that they're losing the game. And I think also finding that balance, finding an opportunity to, like you were saying, mitigating against the things you're weak against, but exploring other tools in that those that are available to you.
Yeah. Having been testing the Meta Monday with Will, we've been noticing the trend that the decks that do the best are the ones that have a game plan, but can also evade the opponent's game plan. They naturally just have defensive stuff in their deck, because a lot of the higher end decks, they have a game plan and it's usually just kill the opponent. And if that is just your goal and your deck is just kill your opponent, you have 0 defense versus the opponent who could be running just kill your opponent or could be doing many other things.
Yeah.
So if you go in to do your combo and it falters, and then the counterattack is they come after you, well, you put 0 defense in your deck, you just can't do anything.
So how specific does the game plan need to be on the meta level?
Ooh, on the meta level? On the meta level, you need to know your goal. What is your strategy for winning a game? Yeah. When we're talking about the top tier meta level, you need to know your game plan. This is a much more deeper thought, because then you need to know as your game plan, and it's not just the rock, paper, scissors, it's which of the decks is the one that you beats you.
Interesting.
Because that's when you start deep diving, when you go into the meta level.
Yeah. Now, going back to the casual level, like, how do we scale that back to the casual level for the new players? Like, how you're saying for new players to have a game plan, but also have a strategy for what you're weak against. How specific does that game plan need to be? Is it to the point that it's like, oh, I'm waiting to get this card and this card? Like, is it combo stuff? Is it like how deep do you go with that?
I'll just go into my personal deck building strategy. Yeah. So your game plan usually is 30 out of your 50 cards.
Okay.
10 next cards are to support your game plan. And then the other 10 are your defensive, evasive, just support for the game itself. that's sort of my weird rough statement. That is not the right statement for every deck. That's just a generic neutral statement. But generally, I'll say this is a general statement. If you are playing a summoner deck, you want usually at least 25 summons. The odd man out is if you're playing like a Titan deck. But
or Malik.
you're yes. But those odd mans out, you have those games where you will not draw a summon and you will lose.
Yeah.
And that's why I usually say a 25 summons is a guarantee that you're generally going to get one summon. It might be a Fear Cup. You might have to cure it with Long, but that is enough. If you are playing a summon deck, you built around summons. You need one summon to win.
Yeah.
So when it comes to the deck building concept itself, you say it's always defensive. I call it having an option.
Yeah.
So even my way with building Malik, I run one Take to the Skies. It's a dumb card to run at times, but it can absolutely save Malik from just getting surrounded and just bodied at times. And then I still run, I think, 3 or 4 puppet controls, and just in case I have that one angel matchup, and it's like, I know I don't have many options to deal with an angel. I'd be better off to get one close to me, snag it, and hopefully throw it back at the opponent before they can respond.
Yeah. There was this idea just before COVID hit, between the championship and the circuit, where people were trying to make a deck that was, 50 to 60% their core, so 25 to 30 cards their core strategy, and the remaining cards were a whole bunch of one-ups.
Interesting.
And the idea there, so you have 20 cards and it's one copy of all these 20 cards, so you get this insane amount of variety on one end of your deck, and on the other end deck, insane amount of consistency, because if you have 30 cards and there's only like 4 different cards in there, well, you're running a whole bunch of copies of those 4 cards. And it's really interesting because it gives your deck a lot of breadth to deal with a whole bunch of different scenarios. But I think also a big thing at that point was that the meta wasn't... we didn't have a good sense of what you would be facing against when you came into a tournament. So you had to have a good variety. And one of those decks, I think, did fairly well in the circuit, got in 2nd or 3rd. But yeah, that was a really cool concept for a while. And I really like that. I know for me, when it comes to deck design, I like to... It depends. I think it's all about synergy. Do they all have pieces that equate to the same larger puzzle? And I like to divide my cards between offense. So once I build my deck, the analytics I'm looking at are how many... so you do the chi levels when you're just building the deck. But once that's done, and you know that your deck's balanced, I now start breaking into how many things are offensive, how many things are defensive, and then I also break it into how many things synergize with my core strategy and how many things don't. And it's really just a gut feeling. Like, I don't have concrete numbers on what I work on. At the end, I just want to make sure that it feels good to play with the deck, and then just iterate on it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I got a meeting. I got to jump on with some stores on the West Coast there. So this is fun. Alex, I'll beat you some other time. Take care, guys.
All right. Goodbye, Chris.
Yeah. Bye.
But it is 8 o'clock, so I think we ourselves are going to be closing down.
Yes. Yeah. So, in the chat, Jalarian Hound is a universal card. Off subject, I know. Of course, I had all questions you got in the chat, but yeah, so the cards that don't have one of the colored affiliations, I guess that's the best way of saying it, those can be played by anyone. So at the end of the day, it just means that all the symbols that are highlighted on the cards in your deck have to also be highlighted on your champion. So Jalarian Hound can go on anyone because everyone has that first world symbol on them.
Yeah.
Yeah, any closing thoughts here?
If you need any further questions about deck building, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Leave a message in the Discords. We'll get back to you whenever you can.
Yeah.
We have no problem helping you out. If you just build the best advice for building a deck is just do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I remember in the really old days when we before Genesis had launched and we were just testing it, it was a lot of people were overthinking their decks, like especially Lincoln and Lionel. They would spend hours playing their deck, and so by the time we started playing, it was like we had already met up like 4 hours ago, and they were just deck crafting. I'm like, no, just throw something together and just play with it. And when it doesn't do well, next week come back with another version of it. You gotta just play. That's what it really comes down to. JC, closing thoughts?
Always have options.
All right. One of the pillars of the game.
Absolutely.
All right. I think that's everything for tonight. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And I hope you have a great week. And we'll see you next week. Bye.
How's it going? Bye.
See ya.